Mark, you look like you were about to.
Yeah, it was a tell.
As a European, you know, as a
European, I am a European, actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh.
Irish citizen. Yeah. So there you
welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Speaking as a European, I like to say the following.
Yeah, that's our European Prime Minister who's getting away with everything at the moment. You're watching Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Crayden. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday, March 24th edition. We'll be back in a few moments with a lot of information for you. I hope you're ready for it.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need to resolve to resist.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. No. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, we're doing it live as we do just about every day of the week. Sometimes we miss. Try not to. We got a lot to talk about today, and unfortunately, we're going to have to go back to the craziness in British Columbia. And I think if there's a litmus test for Canada, it's British Columbia. How bad are things in Canada? Well, go to BC and you see what's coming. And of course, we've talked recently a lot about, there's been horrendous things happening in BC, not just the massacre of ostriches at Universal Ostrich Farm and the invasion of that farm by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. We've dealt with that. We talked about that yesterday when we had Sage and Bethany Lynn on the show to talk about their wonderful book, you know, which I'm going to continue to promote, The Sound of Silence. Fantastic book. We had a great time talking about that yesterday. But BC has become a madhouse. And one of the people who is fighting the madness in BC is, of course, my good friend, Dallas Brodie. And Dallas writes on her X site. Now, Jessica Simpson, better known to some as Jessica Yaniv, hopes to take me to the BC Human Rights Tribunal for stating my support for Billboard Chris. He is saying that I am also engaged in, quote, existential denialism, unquote, because I do not believe that a man can be a woman or vice versa. Jessica Yaniv Simpson wants control over the thoughts and speech of other people. Let's see how far this gets. So Jessica Yaniv, and yeah, this individual has been in the news prior to this. This individual seems to like to be in the news. I think this is all this is about. And who is this, of course? Well, you can look up this individual anywhere. And clearly this is activism at work. This is transgender activism. And if you do not accept the entire narrative, if you do not parrot the words of the transgender narrative, then you should be hauled before kangaroo court, otherwise known as a human rights tribunal. What a joke that is. And you should be forced to defend your right to have free speech. This is how Canada has become a dictatorship. And incredible. Now, Dallas Brodie, of course, is, I think, the most courageous politician in British Columbia. I've had her on the show several times. And the last time she was on the show, we talked about this individual, Barry Neufeld, who is facing a $750,000 fine because he denies the transgender narrative. It's called transgender denialism. And so Barry was found guilty by a kangaroo court in British Columbia by a bunch of woke, can we call them judges, politicians, who said he owes the community now $750,000. And of course, Barry hasn't got $50,000. Do you have $750,000 to give away? No. And of course, at the time, Dallas Brodie said this.
Brodie here. Wanted to let you know about another insane situation that's developed in BC. Barry Neufeld, who's a former trustee of the Chilliwack School Board, was found guilty today of not believing in transgenderism, and he has been fined, get ready, $750,000 for saying that he doesn't believe that there are more than two genders. Can you believe this? The tribunal found that he was guilty of existential denialism, and that's what it came down to. So this poor guy, $750,000. These human rights tribunals are out of control. They're kangaroo courts. They don't meet any of the traditional burdens of proof. It's outrageous that this is happening. If I were premier, these tribunals will be shut down immediately.
Well, it can't happen fast enough, Dallas, and she will be on the show as soon as possible to discuss this. This was breaking yesterday. That just after, of course, she says this is ridiculous to charge this former school trustee from Chilliwack $750,000 for his opinions, she now is being potentially, it hasn't happened yet, the tribunal has not said yes or no, but Jessica Yaniv Simpson wants action against him. He's also initiated action against the individual known as Billboard Chris in social media, because Billboard Chris isn't accepting of the transgender narrative either. But in this country, especially in British Columbia, which is a Marxist state now, and we're going to talk a bit more why it's a Marxist state. You don't have private property in BC. And soon we won't have it in Canada, just like we won't have free speech. But we're living in a country where you don't have a right to your opinions. You do not have a right to express those opinions. And it's just about to get worse. And we'll be talking about that. Before I go any further, I want to wish a very happy birthday today to Barry L. I don't use last names on the station just in case it causes problems for anybody. But Barry, I know you had an incident this week at the hospital. Your family was really, really concerned. I heard about it. You were in my thoughts and prayers immediately, because you know how in high regard I hold your family. And thank you for being a faithful viewer of this station for many years. Thank you for always being a supporter. And I'm here to support you today. And I hope you're through this health crisis. I've recently gone through my own personal tragedy with my mom. Thank God you're back in good health, as I hear yesterday. Keep you in my prayers. Keep in good health. Your family needs you. And long life to you and Godspeed to all you do. And it's obvious that you have been a great head of your family over the years. God bless you, Barry. And thanks for watching the show every day. I know you do. I appreciate it. Anyway, I wanted to mention that because those things sometimes get forgotten because you get wrapped up in political points and you forget what's really important sometimes, and that's important. Happy birthday, Barry. Want to talk about how crazy British Columbia is, because it's a harbinger of what's happening in Canada. And of course, you know, Bill C9 is on the cusp of passing. Now, before we get into what's happening with treaty obligations in British Columbia, I just want to share the screen for a second here with good old X, because this is astounding here. This is, you can't make this up. This is Andrew Lawton talking here about the fact that the Bill C9, which is the massive censorship and surveillance bill, is going right through. And we'll listen to Andrew Lawton in a second here. But here he is saying that they tried to address what's called the religious exemptions in the bill. And the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois teamed up to ensure that these religious exemptions were not included in the bill. Meaning, if you read from the Bible, in Leviticus, for instance, or Romans, anything that is offensive to LGBTQ community, well, you could be charged and go to jail. You read from the Quran, you read from the Torah or Talmud, you could go to jail for reading religious texts that are not concurrent or in agreement with the LGBTQ narrative. So let's listen to Andrew Lawton here.
Faith communities across this country have been very clear that Bill C-9, especially as drafted now, will erode long-standing religious protections for speech and religious freedom in general. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that a couple of weeks ago, 350 Muslim organizations from across the country were very clear that Bill C-9 cannot be allowed to pass. As of today, I believe 735 Christian churches and organizations representing a combined more than 800,000 members have come out calling on the Liberal government to protect religious freedoms and to reverse its removal of the religious defense. We have had Jewish leaders as well. This morning, 89 Quebec civil society organizations coming out. There are very few people backing Bill C-9, and the reason is, especially in the light of the fact that we have the National Prayer Breakfast tomorrow, we have hundreds of faith leaders in Canada. We are giving the Liberals the opportunity to do the right thing this week, undo their removal of the religious defense, state firmly and clearly they will protect religious freedoms. I know the Liberals have said that they don't need to because the Charter of Rights and Freedoms does. Well, last week, they announced that they were once again appealing the Federal Court and Federal Court of Appeal decision that said their usage of the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional. This is not a government that has a track record of upholding charter rights, which is why faith communities are raising very real concerns. We are listening to those and giving the Liberals one final opportunity this week to do the right thing.
I want to reiterate that this Liberal government made a political decision to support the Bloc amendment to remove a 56-year-old religious defense in the criminal code. The removal of defenses in the criminal code is extremely rare. Instead of dividing Canadians, which this particular position does, we've heard from millions of Canadians, thousands of faith leaders who are writing to their Liberal MPs, who are writing to the Prime Minister. They do not support the removal of this defense. It was done for political reasons. This government needs to prioritize issues that are facing Canadians on a daily basis. We've had 10 years of rising crime levels and very little substantive criminal law policies and laws to protect Canadians. The focus should be just exactly on that as we tried to pursue an immediate study on C-14 before Christmas, and now C-16.
And that, of course, was Andrew Lawton and Larry Brock. I think both speaking very candidly about how bad this bill is. I cannot overemphasize the fact that this bill. No, I'll tell you what. I'm going to return to my ex because there's some incredible stuff up here I want to get into later. But removing or keeping the religious exemption in this bill, meaning you're still safe to read the Bible, the Quran, or your religious text without fearing you're going to go to jail for doing so. Keeping that in this bill was the bare minimum the official opposition tried to do. The whole bill is bad. Everything about C-9 is toxic. It's surveillance. It's censorship. It's an attack on basic foundational free speech. Bill C-8, Bill C-9, Bill C-22, we'll be discussing this in a second. That's a surveillance bill that's coming down the line. We also, of course, will have the resurrected Online Harms Act, which I predict will be called the Online Safety Act. That's the one with the thought crimes component. It's even worse than Bill C-9. It's all coming. There's nothing going to stop it unless there's an election real soon. But if there's not, these bills will pass through this Liberal government. And I don't think there's been enough opposition to it. I really don't think so. Why did Pierre Poilievre go on Joe Rogan and talk about Canada in such a rosy way? Like everything is wonderful up here. No, it's not. We are on a road to perdition. We are on the path to authoritarian government. I'm not exaggerating. There's no hyperbole there. It's black and white in these bills. Your free speech is in danger. It will be extinguished very, very shortly. Stations like this that dare to talk about the truth, that dare to expose the truth, that dare to share ideas and policies that are not in agreement with the liberal woke narrative, they will try to take us off the air. They will try to shut us down because we didn't fight when we had the chance. I've been fighting. A lot of my compatriots have been fighting hard. But I don't think we've had enough fight from the official opposition on this. Andrew Lawton, excellent job. Larry Brock, excellent job. Unfortunately, every member of that conservative caucus should have been on their feet every day saying, this is the end of freedom in this country if this bill passes. That didn't happen. What else are we losing in this country? Well, private property for one. Because what's happening again in British Columbia, the land grab by First Nations chiefs. And I don't even say First Nations, I say First Nations chiefs, because they'll grab the land, and who do you think is going to benefit from all of this? You think the average Indigenous person or First Nations person or Indian band member? I didn't think we're allowed to say that anymore, but the government news release uses Indian band. So I guess it's acceptable to say that. But do you think the average member is going to benefit from these land grabs? No, they never do. They'll still be immersed in poverty, in unemployment, in hopelessness, and the chiefs will continue to get very, very wealthy. Drive their cars, fly their private planes, and that's the reality of the land grab. And this is what Aboriginal title is all about. It's historic agreement recognizing right stewardship in fisheries. So, all right, so you think you own your property in British Columbia? You've been paying taxes on it to the local municipality for what, a decade or more? Sorry, you don't own it anymore. Any First Nations band can claim it. Say it's Aboriginal title. Our ancestors used to live there. Therefore, it's ours. This is heretical to everything Canada should stand for. Everything that Canada used to believe in, like equality under the law, forget it. There's no equality under the law. And the law is whatever the government says it is. And Aboriginal title and this agreement with the Musqueam is absolutely horrifying, because what it means is that you don't have any property rights. And historical mission, get this, Squamish creates land back task force with Squamish Nation. So in other words, that means they want the land back. The chiefs want the land back, even though it was never their land to begin with. You cannot go back hundreds of years and say because maybe 10,000 people occupied millions of square miles that therefore it's theirs today. I'm sorry, history moves on. This country has moved on. Reconciliation should not be about giving First Nations your backyard or your house. It should be about recognizing the equality of all people. We're all in this together. And regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of your ethnicity or where your ancestors came from, we're all equal as Canadians under the law. That should be what reconciliation is about, but it's not. It's about stealing your land and making you feel guilty for things that happened hundreds of years ago that you had nothing to do with. And this is contrary to everything Canada used to believe in, used to stand for. This is absolutely, as I said, heretical to what Canada should be about. And we are in grave trouble with this land back task force. We should not be giving any land back. If you want land, do as every Canadian does, buy it. Don't take it from somebody else. And we've heard reports of trailer parks being taken over by First Nations bands and everybody evicted onto the street. Oh, that's okay. You know, they're just poor people. They don't matter. That doesn't matter. But I am so angry about this. I predicted this decades ago. As soon as we got immersed into this native self-government, I knew eventually it would come down to the natives owning your property because they say so. And the government acquiesces. And the government says, fine. Oh, it's all about reconciliation. All you have to do is just roll over and take it. Well, I don't know if it does any good anymore, because clearly the mechanisms of power are against us. I'm going to keep fighting for what I believe is equality under the law and the sanctity of private property in this country. Nobody's going to take my private property away because they think they deserve to, and they want to profit from it. You know what it reminds me of? And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. All right. I'll say it again. In NAZI, Germany, you have to be very careful with words these days on social media. You can be canceled for saying the wrong thing. We live in a world of censorship. In that regime in Germany in the 1930s and 40s, Jewish people were kicked out of their homes, kicked out of their apartment buildings because they weren't the right race. The special race was the Aryan race, and they had a right to take over Jewish people's properties. They took over their apartments, kicked them out in the street. Jewish people were forced to sell their homes at way below market value. The Germans thought, oh, we're just being fair about this. So they were forced to sometimes give away multi-million-dollar properties for a couple $1,000 to an Aryan buyer because that was their right. They had a right to take over their homes because they did not recognize the citizenship of Jewish people. Now, that was abominable. That was racist. How is that any different from somebody saying, because I own your property because of my race and ethnicity? That gives me the title to your property. My race and ethnicity gives me entitlement. That, my friend, is completely contrary to not just good sense, common sense, but what used to be known as good constitutional law in this country. We have moved so beyond what this country is all about. It is mind-boggling. Now, I've got another one for you here. Bill C-22, another poison pill coming your way from the federal government. What's that all about? Well, you think the cops are going to need a court order to conduct surveillance on you? No. Just the mere suspicion. You're up to something bad. Maybe you're into money laundering, or maybe you're even a terrorist because, well, we don't like the things you say.
C-22, the Lawful Access Act 2026 becomes the law. The Government of Canada will be able to secretly order Apple to build in a capability into its infrastructure to allow Canadian law enforcement and national security folks to track every iPhone, every iPad, every Apple Watch, every Apple AirPod, and every AirTag in real time. Then they'll be able to require Apple to confirm whether they provide you any services. Then they can go to a justice of the peace and get an order, without actually believing that a crime has been or will be committed, requiring Apple to hand over every device identifier for every device that you use with their services. That's the digital ID for your iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, AirPod, Apple TV, AirTag. With that information, they can go back to the judge and get an order, again without actually believing that a crime has been or will be committed, requiring Apple to give them the moment-by-moment locations of all your devices. Oh, and that secret order also required Apple to keep your location history for a full year, so cops can get that too. Is that a power we want Canadian police and law enforcement to have?
Absolutely not. No, that's not a power I want law enforcement authorities to have. Not because I'm immediately suspicious of the cops or the police. I've spent my life supporting police forces. But when you give police that kind of power and authority, inevitably they will abuse it, because there are members of that police force who think they have the right to be preemptive in their law enforcement. In other words, maybe we think this guy's guilty, so we'll set him up. We'll make sure he's guilty. And, well, the end justifies the means, doesn't it? So maybe that's not ethical. Maybe it's not even legal. But we'll do it because, well, we think this person is a danger to society. The point is, it's still not ethical, but it's soon going to be totally legal. And that is the frightening spectrum in this country. We have on the horizon the looming danger of tyranny and an authoritarian government. Now, I want to go back to my X page because there's some fascinating things on there today, which I noticed this morning while I was doing my check on things. And this is fascinating. Nicholas Hulscher, who of course has been on this show, he was on the show specifically to talk about the H1 or H5N1 avian influenza and how it wasn't a factor in the ostriches at Universal Ostrich Farms. We talked about that for a good hour, and the fact that the CFIA deliberately would not test those birds because they knew they were healthy. But Nicholas Hulscher has been doing some great work. Gates Foundation has developed, this is not science fiction, this is true, microneedle implants that install both permanent quantum dot markings and mRNA into your body, which of course the COVID shot installed into your body, mRNA. Once implanted, they can be read by AI within seconds to verify compliance. They will function as biological vaccine passports required to enter stores and to travel. Let's listen to Nicholas here.
mRNA injections in the form of basically a postage stamp with, hundreds of mini needles on it. You would put it, and by the way, this is already developed, funded by Gates Foundation, by the way. This would go on your skin, it could go on your forehand, your arm, somewhere on your body. And it literally dissolves into your skin and installs quantum dots. This is some sort of material that is detectable with identification technologies that last for at least 5 years in the body. And it would be used as a biological vaccine passport. So what they do, they'll ship the postage stamps to your house. You put it on your body and you will be marked with a quantum dot QR code. The technology has advanced recently, and mRNA. And so that's one coming up the pipeline for another pandemic. mRNA injections in the form of basically a postage stamp with.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And is this really happening? You bet it is. Now, this is crazy too. Listen to this.
The area of recklessness is the spending of governments around the world, who are all, with little exception, all spending well beyond their means. That's the recklessness of this moment in history. This is not a parallel to the 1920s in terms of the recklessness of the private capital markets. It's a story of the recklessness of government spending. Within the private sector, there's a huge question as to where AI will take us. And I was carefully taking notes and listening to what Larry has to say, or to what Madame Lagarde has to say, because this is one of the big issues of our moment. Will AI create the productivity acceleration that is honestly just hoped for in Washington and in the halls of government around the world as a way to overcome the profligate spending that we're currently engaged in? Like the world needs a savior. And the hope is that AI is the savior that we need for productivity. And the challenge with this is it may or may not be. We just don't know yet.
Wow. So this is the Chief Executive Officer of Citadel.
The area
you almost have to hear it again. Ken Griffin. And he's saying AI is the savior. If you believe in an antichrist or not, whether, I don't know if your theology allows for that, permits that, But if you believe that there's an antichrist on the horizon, will it be AI? But the mentality of these people is we have to give up all of our freedoms because the people in power are so damn dishonest and stupid that AI is preferable. That's the argument he just made. What about putting people in power who are ethical, moral, and not so stupid, who aren't going to spend trillions of dollars on wars, who aren't going to spend all of your money on the elites? No, we need AI instead. Are you being played? Yeah, we're being played every day of the week. Listen to this. Frank Grimes Jr. posted this. Mark Carney said he got involved in politics to help his company. Now, should we play all of this?
If funding, which is now increasingly available, or capital, which is now increasingly available, is the second step and policy is the first, does that mean that you may be seeing a path back to the public sector?
Well,
policy?
I do spend some time advising on what, again, pro bono, but advising on the types of policies that are going to have maximum impacts for investors. So I'll give you an example, which is one of the issues. It's not the biggest issue. It's like 2% of global emissions. You wouldn't know it from the headlines, but 2% of global emissions is for air travel, emissions from air travel. Now, so the question is, are we going to have green, sustainable aviation fuel? What's happened in the UK, the EU, is they've said to major airlines, look, if you're flying in and out of Heathrow or wherever, you have to have 10% of your load has to be sustainable aviation fuel by, I think it's 2030. Consequence of that policy has been to convert some entrepreneurs in Texas, in this case, a company called Infineon, to become economic, because all of a sudden American Airlines, British Airways need to buy that fuel. They'll pay a green premium. You've got an offtake, that's high credit quality. And so in that case, we Brookfield put $1 billion to work there, and it's a fantastic opportunity. The point being, without the policy, the policy has to drive it and drive things down. So yeah, I'm dodging your question.
I know, I know you're dodging.
And look at the time.
I look at the time. 20 minutes left. We have all the time to come back to this. No, but I.
Yeah. So Mark Carney is in politics to enrich Brookfield Asset Management. And that is what he's continuing to do today as prime minister.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Well, common sense would tell you, if you have a man standing in front of you saying he's going to reduce the world's population by 10 or 15% using vaccines, what does that mean to you? It means somebody's going to die because you put a vaccine in them. It doesn't mean you're going to save people. That's pretty much common sense in my brain. But yet I saw him say it. He said it. And here we are. I don't know. I'm just, here we are. I'm now an anti-vaxxer. I wasn't before.
Now, the world today has...
And I want to get back to the page here, show you what I've been writing lately. I haven't got the Blaze Media one up, though, do I? But this particular article has been extremely... Gates should be jailed. I appreciate you saying that. He should be. That was Bill Gates in that last video. It was Bill Gates talking about depopulating the world through various means. This has been extremely popular. You can find this on my Substack, www.KRAYDEN'S.com. Most corrupt prime minister in Canadian history. These are the receipts for why Mark Carney is leading the most corrupt government in Canadian history. And it's all there. It's all there. And of course, this is my take, a very personal take on the great Joe Rogan Experience interview that we all saw last week. there are some substantial problems with that interview, even though I adhere to what I said initially. It was a political tour de force, political triumph, political victory. He said what he needed to say for the audience he was trying to reach, which was, believe it or not, the mainstream legacy media in Canada, red Tories, people who are not trusting of the Conservatives because they think they're too extreme. He reached that audience very effectively. And he really didn't alienate the principled Conservatives, the grassroots, who really wanted to hear a bit more about Bill C-8, Bill C-9, Bill C-22, about lack of freedom of speech in this country, about the collapse of democracy in this country, about how corrupt the Carney government is. Well, he didn't talk about any of those things. But the grassroots are telling me, don't worry about it. Don't fret. It's okay. Don't give him a pass. Give him a break. He wasn't there to talk about that. So that tells me mission accomplished. Pierre Poilievre, you did what you needed to do. And you did it, I think, very, very effectively. And please hype this video today on YouTube. Like I said, we need your support. Please subscribe. Sasha, my old cat, used to always say, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Because we're here to fight this. We're here to fight Mark Carney's censorship for as long as we're allowed to, till they haul us away. We're going to keep fighting. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not. And unfortunately, not enough people have realized how serious the situation is in Canada. We're on the precipice, the cusp of losing our freedom, like the station. Because when YouTube wants to destroy a station, they just make sure nobody sees the broadcasts, nobody's able to like it, nobody can subscribe. They take subscribers away because they're trying to say the station is not important. People don't want this station on the air. We're going to fight that. I want to go to the merchandise here, and I've got lots more.
Who cares?
And you can get your, I know a lot of people say, and I don't wear these hats very often. I'm not somebody who wears baseball caps constantly, but this is great. I was out yesterday out and about. People noticed this hat. Want to show you our latest. And as I said yesterday, it was my real pleasure to have, oh, just a second here. I always forget I have to put it up there first. There we go. There we go. Yeah. We'll get it. Sorry. Thanks for your patience here. Yeah, here we go. This is our latest hat. This is our Justice for the Ostriches hat. And it's actually comes in two forms. But we got a lot of great merchandise coming out, including the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party, which, of course, Pierre Poilievre talked about. That was the best part of the Joe Rogan interview, when he reiterated his belief, his support, his absolute desire for the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party, which he first talked about when he was interviewed by Rex Murphy, rest his soul, back in December 2023. It was a great interview, and he talked at that time about this hypothetical party. So you can also get the trigger stickers, Justice for Universal Ostriches, Turning Point. We have these in hoodies. Just sent one to Sage Lynn yesterday, the author of that fantastic book, The Sound of Silence, along with her mother, Beth. Sent one of these hoodies to her yesterday. We are putting out the hats with this as well. And, of course, the usual. But I wanted to ensure we continue to support in every way we can Universal Ostrich Farms. And I have done so much to help these farmers who have been harassed, assaulted, attacked by the federal government, and they're fighting back, and I'm fighting back with them. And this is one way we're fighting back. Buy one of these today. I encourage you. If you support Universal Ostrich Farms, go on the site and buy one of these today, because we really, really want to do all we can. And by the way, when we first put out the ostrich hoodies, all proceeds went to Universal Ostrich Farms, to Katie Pisitne and Karen Esperson. And it was a pleasure to do that, because we support them. We love them. We love what they do. And got to go back here. So that's the latest merchandise we have. Want to share something with you here. Oh yes. Yep. We've got a video that just popped up here. Producer, can we have that?
That over the last 3 decades, law enforcement has been hamstrung in their ability to investigate, as we know that technology has evolved. This is no longer the time when we are carrying pagers or even antiquated cell phones. We are in an era where we have smartphones. With our phones, we have so much information that's available to us. Every desktop computer and every technology out there have significant abilities, not just to communicate, but also to deter those who use crime as a tool.
Yeah, there's your public safety minister, Gary Anandasangri. Did I pronounce it right? I did. Yeah, and just in case you missed that, here's the t-shirt of the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party. Oh, don't you wish there was such a thing? I do, because that government is best which governs least. To quote Thomas Jefferson, I've become a real libertarian over the years. Not capital L, but small l, because I really believe we're best when the government governs least. And I think the government is the problem. Get out of my life. Stop telling me how to live, what to think, how to raise my children, how to eat, how to drink. The government is constantly trying to control. And we're living in a globalist state where it's getting worse, not better. Thank you, Joe, Canada 579, for becoming a member. Yeah, please sign up today. Thank you very much. Yes. God bless you for supporting what we're doing here. Thank you so much for that. All right, I want to show you a video because we've got to talk about the incident in the Middle East. I have to laugh at this now because, of course, it's not clear to anybody what the hell is going on in the Persian Gulf. Now, I went on a radio show yesterday. I go on every week. Yeah. And I was talking to the host before the broadcast, and he said, well, no use talking about the war in Iran. That's over. And I said, sorry, why is it over? And we didn't really have a chance to talk about it, but an hour later, I was watching Redacted and other shows, and I realized, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. The mixed messaging coming from the Trump administration is absolutely crazy. And the important thing now is to get this war over before we are plunged into the Great Depression or the Third World War. Those are the two alternatives here to peace. The Great Depression 2.0 or World War III, which could quickly become nuclear. That's why we want the war to end. I don't care. I don't want to be right. I said from the beginning, this was a mistake. It's going to unravel. It's going to be bad for the United States. It's going to be bad for Israel. It's going to be bad for the world. I think I was right about that, but that's not the point anymore. I don't care if Donald Trump wants to declare victory and say, we won. Okay, great. Just get this damn war over. And this is what a lot of people who are Trump supporters, who worked hard to get Donald Trump elected, who supported Donald Trump 3 times, like I did. No, of course I didn't vote in the American election, but I vocally supported him, and I wrote multitude of articles for American publications that I write for supporting Donald Trump because I thought he was the obvious choice, the best choice in 2016, in 2020, in 2024. So a lot of people are saying just end the war because this is just getting too crazy.
But Donald Trump had said if Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Okay, so very interesting right out the gate, because just earlier that same day, he would already announce that we completely won the war. Then he puts out these threats. And so first, what did this, of course, do to the futures market? So yes, traders that went long on Friday thinking maybe we would have some improvement, they find this out after hours, and of course the market immediately reverses. And we'll talk more about that here in a second, but we also have to notice is, again, Donald Trump threatening to bomb and destroy civilian power plants. Now, what was the really big problem with that threat to begin with? I don't know. Maybe, that literally in Protocol 1 in the Geneva Conventions said, you cannot target civilian and civilian objects, including homes, hospitals, schools, power plants, and water systems. This is part of the fundamental principle of distinction between military and civilian targets. So yes, Donald Trump was threatening over Truth Social war crimes and also giving away classified information. Isn't that interesting that they're trying to try Joe Kent for supposedly leaking classified information while the President of the United States is putting top secret plans out on Truth Social? Nice. And so the reason why this actually is very good news, and Iran called Trump's bluff, is that, had we bombed their power plants, Iran announced that the immediate retaliation of that would be hitting the desalination plants in the Gulf states, which would probably have created a refugee crisis of about 50 to 60 million people. And Iran had actually immediately called Trump's bluff, and they put out a big, you've probably seen it, it's gone viral, response to Donald Trump's 48-hour threat.
A reminder to the corrupted island man, the ground and the map of the war is in our hands.
So the reason why that's going viral is at the end of his response, he literally switches to English to specifically say directly to Donald Trump, to the corrupt island man, a reminder that the war is in their hands. Their response was to literally call Donald Trump a pedophile. So it doesn't seem like they were taking the threat very seriously. And of course, 48 hours later, right before the market opens, what did Donald Trump come out and say? Yes, Donald Trump came out and said, we have major points of agreement in talks with Iran. Says there's a real possibility of making a deal with a ceasefire. And to me, that sounds great. I think we should all want this conflict to end as fast as possible. If we could actually pull this off, that'd be fantastic. What's the big problem with that? Iran came out and said, we haven't spoken to Donald Trump or the United States, and there are no ceasefire agreements. So again, Donald Trump's just completely making these things up out of thin air. And why is he doing it? Because he's trying to stop the stock market from tanking into oblivion. And we saw the reaction of exactly that. And I'm not really sure how the stock market and all the finance bros haven't picked up yet that Donald Trump has done this like 9 times so far in the war. But as you can see, as of this morning, the S&P 500 is up 1.5% because I guess the world thinks that we're going to have a ceasefire. Okay, great, fantastic. I hope so. But what's the problem with that is you can't keep it straight because he's also saying stuff like this. So again, at the same time that we supposedly are coming to a deal, Donald Trump has also said there will be no deal with Iran except for unconditional surrender. After that, in the selection of great and acceptable leaders, we and many of our wonderful, brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Okay. Yeah, okay. The video. But what we do know is this is the most blatant, obvious stock market manipulation ever. I mean, he's done this like 9 times already to try to control the price of oil. Did it a couple weeks ago where he announced that the war was pretty much wrapped up, and of course, oil tanked, and then everybody realized the war wasn't over, and oil skyrocketed to the moon once again. Also, the stock market has been tanking into oblivion, and it is very obvious that this is just a damage control measure at the moment. And there was some very suspicious behavior with the market today. You, of course, have Barron Trump, who I believe invested close to $30 million into oil at the market low, which, of course, is paying off incredibly well. I imagine he probably sold it at the market top before this new ceasefire announcement. But what we also have is things like this. Somebody who bought $1.5 billion in oil futures right before the announcement. Yeah, they keep doing this. It's almost like this is designed as just a way for the people close to Donald Trump to make millions and billions of dollars off this conflict.
So I have a lot of time for this guy. Valhalla is a show. He's a former Green Beret, combat experience, somebody who knows what war is like and really doesn't think we should be getting into another one real quick, especially one that could lead to a third world war. So I encourage you to watch him. And because I think, this is a guy who voted for Trump 3 times. This is a guy who supported Donald Trump and probably would again if Donald Trump would just remember who voted for him. And that's the important thing. I want to show a quick clip here from Redacted yesterday. A lot of people saying, why aren't you on Redacted anymore? Well, Redacted's changed its format. They usually only have one guest, and it's all right now about the war in Iran. And so I hope we get back to a schedule where they allow more Canadian news on the show, and they'll invite me back. But actually, ever since when they came back after Christmas, then it was, first of all, it was the Jeffrey E. files that were prominent. Then, of course, the war, and it's been difficult to get on the show ever since. But anyway, here is a great clip yesterday talking about what could happen if the U.S. invades Karg Island, which is just off the coast of Iran. A lot of oil goes through Karg. And Lindsey Graham, the incredibly stupid, crazy, infantile Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, Rhino Republican, talked about how this would be just like Iwo Jima. We did it then, we can do it again. Well, Lindsey Graham's never been in combat. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But this could be catastrophic if somebody forces the United States troops to take this action.
I'm just trying to picture this because I think there should be a major uprising if we let this happen in our country.
I really believe that we are teetering on possibly a revolution and a political revolution in this country.
Yeah, say more about that, because I will fucking freak if this happens. And you can tell I'm upset about it. So, I mean, do you think the Iranians these people would surrender, or is it really like limbs flying, like Saving Private Ryan?
No, I think what would happen is, and this is a terrible thing to talk about because I work occasionally with the military as a consultant, so I don't say this with any joy. I want our guys to win and be safe, but ultimately, they're being led into a very bad place by really bad leadership right now. And I say this as a 3-time Trump supporter as well. I don't understand what's going on here. It doesn't make any sense. But if he does this, what will happen is probably a replay of Gallipoli, where they will land, they will take heavy casualties, they will retreat. The ships will then be brought to a farther range, because I'm sure as those landings are occurring, Iranian ASBM systems will be being used against whatever ships are deploying the Marines close to probably the amphibious lander, close to whatever target they're whatever one of those 3 locations they're trying to land at. So it would probably be a strategic withdrawal That can't be covered up indefinitely. I know they're covering up a lot of things about this war and they're slow walking the casualty rates, but ultimately, at least I think they are, but ultimately, this can't be covered up, something that big. And what would happen is at that point, you would see a pivot in the world system, because the whole world would then realize the American military juggernaut doesn't work anymore. We're no longer the biggest, baddest dog in the neighborhood, and then from there would probably also be an economic assault on it. We're already seeing that happen with the Strait of Hormuz closure. You're already seeing now China. We went to war supposedly to hurt China. Well, China's the only country right now getting Iranian oil and getting it below market value, and they're moving it on ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and they're being paid in yuan. And now the Indians and Japanese are doing the same thing. They're being given safe passage by the Iranians through the Strait of Hormuz, and as long as they pay transit fees in yuan, the Chinese currency. So you're already seeing the geoeconomic assault occurring. If you pair that with the potentiality of a complete rout of an American land force being rebuffed the way that the British were rebuffed by the Turks at Gallipoli 100 years ago, I think you would see basically the end of the American economic and military system as we know it today. It would be a true new world order coming online, with the United States not in a very good position at that sort of strategic level.
Which is exactly what I've been saying. This individual also talks about the fact that the age of the aircraft carrier is over, because a $13 billion aircraft carrier like the USS Gerald Ford can be put out of action by a drone or two, $50,000 drone or two. And that means all you have to do is destroy or wreck or in some way impair the flight deck, and that aircraft carrier has to go back to port for repairs. You don't have to sink it. So it's like the world has changed. The military tactics have changed. The war has changed. And I don't think the United States political leadership realizes. I think the military leadership realizes that they can't win this war right now. They don't have enough armaments. They're running out of the anti-missile armaments. They're running the aircraft carriers. They can't risk another aircraft carrier being put out of action. These are the problems. And this guy is a 3-time Trump supporter. And he says, just stop this war before it gets worse, because the end result will be complete loss of United States prestige throughout the world. That is something I fought against my entire life, not just as a journalist, but as a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. I valued the Americans as our trusted and our best allies. I love America, always have. I don't want to see America destroyed in an unnecessary war. I want to see this end before it's too late. Canada would be getting rich right now if we had our fields going and our pipelines going. Very good point. Very good point. But I'll leave it at that, because that's where I stand on this. I want this war to end before it's too late, because this cannot go well for the United States or even for Israel. Eva Chase, thank you for saying so. And once again, I want to wish a very happy birthday to Barry L. Happy birthday. I know you're going to have a great birthday today, and your family loves you. And thank you very much for watching, all of you. It's appreciated. No one wins in war, I've seen war zones. I served in the military. And it's no doubt the people who hate war the most are the ones who fought it the hardest. You don't think this is something you want to do over and over again, because nobody wins in the end, except the military industrial complex. Thank you so much for watching. God bless all of you. Godspeed to everything you do, trying to give you all the news you need. Thank you for sharing this station with your friends and family. Thank you for hitting that like button, because I tell you, we are fighting back in a way I've never had to before, because I'm going to keep this station on the air. I am going to keep fighting for freedom. I'm going to keep fighting for justice and truth. And I am damn determined to resist this Carney government in any way possible as it encroaches upon our individual freedom. And it will continue to do that, mark my words. I'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place. 10 a.m. This has been David Crayden, broadcasting live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.